What's going on, everybody? Oh my gosh, it's so good to talk to you today. And today we're going to talk about one of my favorite subjects, animation. And obviously, we're not going to talk about the whole thing, like every little aspect of it. Like there are whole college course loads dedicated to that. I took one. I did 4 years of that. But I'm going to try to give you guys an intro into animation and just little aspects that are important to help get you started on your journey if you want to do this for making videos or just for fun or whatever. Now, there are lots of like big types of animation, meaning we have CG animation, stop motion animation, 2D hand-drawn animation, and then there's a wide variety of stuff in between, but basically those are the three big ones, and everything else will kind of fall under one of those categories. Now, for each of those categories, there are two basic ways that you can animate stuff, and that's keyframe animation or straight ahead animation. Now, in keyframe animation, what you would do is you will take the big moments of an animation, like if you want to make a ball bounce, you will start with the ball out of the screen or up top on the screen, and then it will hit the ground, bounce up, and then hit the ground again and bounce up and go down and bounce up. And those big moments, like up here, like way up high, hitting the ground, the part where it bounces back up, the next part that it hits the ground, and so forth and so on, those are called the keyframes. Those are the major points of action in your animation. And so for keyframe animation, you will draw those first, and you will get those big points out, and it will look something like this. But obviously, that's not clean, nice animation. Now, why doesn't it look right? Because you did all the keyframes. This is called keyframe animation. Well, that's because you have to add extra drawings or extra keys in Maya or Blender or whatever you're using, and those are called in-betweens. Now, if you're in Maya or Blender doing it 3D, and you do good keyframes, then the in-betweens can be automatically interpreted by the computer, and it can move from one keyframe to the other with making all those in-betweens. But if you're doing hand-drawn animation, then you have to make those in-betweens, and you'll have to employ another technique that makes things look really good called squash and stretch. Now, if you just animated the in-betweens and the keyframes, and the ball didn't change shape at all, it's fine, but it's boring, right? But if you add squash and stretch, so when the ball's coming down for that first bounce, if you stretch it out, it highlights that sense of speed. And then when it hits the ground, if you squash it down, it really looks like it's hit the ground. And then you do that over and over, and you add these things in your keyframes and your in-betweens, and you've got a really nice looking animation. This works great for, like I said, 3D animation and hand-drawn animation, but it really doesn't work for stop-motion animation, which is honestly a really fun kind of animation. So obviously in stop-motion, you're having to move something physical, take a picture, and then move it a little bit more. Now, if you try to do keyframe animation with that, it's gonna be a giant mess because you will almost never be able to get it right back to where it was to do those in-betweens. So you have to employ the other kind of animation. That's called straight ahead animation. And that just means that you animate linearly in a sequence. You're just going first, second, third, fourth, and you're not skipping around. So you just move the thing as you go, and you're taking your pictures and you're making your movie. Now, this is a lot of fun. I love stop motion animation, but to make it look really good, because of that straight ahead nature where you're just going along a path as much as you can, you really need to plan out your animation ahead of time. So what I would suggest is taking a piece of paper or, an iPad or whatever you have and drawing out the path that you want your animation to take. So you've got some idea in your head of what it wants to look like. Like, don't rigidly hold to whatever you put down on paper, because sometimes you get happy little accidents and things like that, and you just roll with it because it makes it look cool. But plan it out ahead of time, and that way you can really get a good sense of what pictures you need to take and how you need to move things. and you can go do it easy peasy. So we've gotten an overview of keyframe animation and straight ahead animation. Now, for the rest of this, I'm going to talk about keyframe animation. So straight ahead animation is what it is. Like, you plan things out and then you linearly move forward and do your animation. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about keyframe animation because it's a little more nuanced. And all these principles apply to straight ahead animation as well. But I'm just going to talk about it in the terms of that keyframe animation because it's easier to sort of illustrate with this bouncing ball here. Now, the general rule of thumb for things that you're animating is more frames make a motion look slower and less frames make it look faster. So when the ball's coming down and hitting the ground, coming straight down, boom, that looks really fast. So you won't use a lot of frames in here. You'll just use a few of them. But then when it bounces up, balls will kind of hang in the air just for a little bit. So you might put some extra frames on either side of that arc when it's floating to just make it feel like it rests up there a little more, and then it comes back down with less frames. And that's a big part of making your animations look really good, is that balance in between quick and slow motion. And you simply do that by adding more frames. If you're in 3D and you're on like a timeline of animation, you'll just have more space in that timeline. If you're doing 2D or stop motion, then it means that you add more frames around the thing you want to slow down, add less frames around the thing you want to speed up. Like I said, there is so much more that we can go into with animation. I mean, it's a huge subject. But I really think that this is enough information that you can get started playing around and at least make some sort of animation with. I hope this helps you all tremendously because these were basically the tips I got when I first started, and then you add more and more principles onto that as you learn more. But hopefully this will get you excited about it and just let you understand a little bit about how your favorite animations are made. All right, see ya.